and let's talk about recruiting. The state of Georgia recruiting. I don't know if you see my banner there on the screen for my YouTube followers. That's a little double meaning there, pretty clever guy. State of Georgia as well as maybe, kind of a state of the union thing. Let's take a look at Georgia recruiting right now. But also the state of Georgia recruiting. And the other night, so I'm on the Chase Thomas podcast every week. We usually do it twice a week during the season, once a week during this every Monday during the off season. Chase Thomas podcast, and that's probably where a lot of my hatred of the Tennessee Vols comes from. Obviously, the Tennessee Vol hate, it runs deep, but I can't have Georgia losing to Tennessee now doing this podcast with him. As long as I've been doing it like 4 or 5 years. So that's why the Tennessee one sticks out a little more to me. But he made a point of talking about Georgia's in-state recruiting and how it's an advantage that Texas, this was his overall point, was that Georgia and Texas have an advantage kind of on what Tennessee will ever be able to do, just because those two programs can just knock it out of the park in in-state recruiting and put together a solid class. Put together an elite class just with in-state talent. And Tennessee can't do that in the state of Tennessee. And I think while that's a fair point, I think it kind of understates what Kirby Smart has really been able to build and how Kirby Smart has built what he's built at Georgia. Because the one thing that my friend Chase Thomas pointed out was that Georgia signed 21 of Georgia's 27 signees in the 2025 class were from the state of Georgia. That's 78% of the class. That is insane. And what took me back more than anything about that number was that is not how Kirby Smart has recruited basically the entire time he's been at Georgia. I throw out the 2016 class. I actually didn't even put him in my data, so I should look at that, what that number is. But it could have been heavier in state. But 2017 is basically the first true Kirby Smart class. You had Eason and Miko Hardman in that 2016 class to finish strong, but 2017 he was the full-time coach and he built that class, and that's Jake Fromm and Andrew Thomas. DeAndre Swift, Richard LeCount in that class. And 16 of those 25 signees were from the state of Georgia. That's 64%. And prior to 2025, that's the highest percentage of in-state talent Georgia has signed in a class. The next year, 2018, 54% was from the state of Georgia. And then in 2021, 50%, and that was the smallest class of the Kirby tenure. Only 20 signees in that class, and 10 of them were from the state of Georgia. So those 4 classes are the only classes that have 50% or more of the talent of the signees coming from the state of Georgia. And that's what's so interesting to me, because the state of Georgia is good enough that, yeah, you lock down the state of Georgia and you're going to have an elite class. But what I think is my friend was underselling when talking about Georgia recruiting the state of Georgia is how difficult it is to lock down the borders in the state of Georgia. I mean, you have a national championship winning program like Clemson. You have a national championship winning program like Alabama, like Auburn, like Florida State, like Florida. Go back to 98, and I know it's the 20th century, but go back to 98, Tennessee won a national championship. South Carolina is a team that has built a lot of their rosters on talent from the state of Georgia. There's not a state in the entire country that is just surrounded by big time college football programs like the state of Georgia is. And now you look at since Jeff Collins got to Georgia Tech, and now Brent Key, now Georgia Tech's actually a player for some of that talent in the state of Georgia, another Power 4 conference opponent in the state of recruiting against you. And obviously Georgia tends to get the guys they want when it comes to Georgia and Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech is slowly but surely getting into the mix. And maybe they had to first start getting some of those players that, Kentucky and South Carolina were getting, But now Georgia Tech's starting to, recruit some of those guys that maybe Auburn was trying to get, maybe the guys that Tennessee is trying to get. And so the state of Georgia is just so loaded. To see Georgia sign 78% of the in-state, or I should say 78% of their signees to be in-state recruits, that's just kind of unheard of in the Kirby Smart era. Like, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, everyone talked about that team and the Georgia impact on that team. You look at the Georgia players on that team and where they were from. Nolan Smith was from Georgia. Jalen Carter's from Florida. Jordan Davis is from North Carolina. Keely Ringo's from Arizona. N'Kobe Dean's from Mississippi. Even Lewis Seen, who they signed on their practice squad late, he's from Texas. So Georgia's been recruiting guys from all over the country. 2024 players were from Georgia. 2023, only 5 of the 26 signees were from Georgia, 19%. That was actually the lowest number in 2023. 2022, it was 13 of the 30 were from Georgia. And those were the second and first and second and third ranked classes in the country. So Georgia is clearly still signing elite classes, and they have to recruit nationally. If they're able to, lock down the state of Georgia, I mean, it definitely just becomes that much more dangerous. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, to be honest. I think 2025 will tend to be more of an outlier. And you look at the 2026 class right now, and I was starting to say it's not that loaded. I mean, it is a loaded. There's always good players. There's like 10 guys that are like top 100 players in the state of Georgia for this class, but there's only one 5-star according to the On3 industry ranking is Tyler Atkinson, the number 1 linebacker out of Grayson. And I know Xavier Griffin from Gainesville, he's the USC commit. He's up there as well, but I don't think he's a 5-star. But right now, Georgia's got 5 commits in the 2026 class, and only one of them is from the state of Georgia. So I'm curious to see, how this 2026 class looks compared to 2025. Is Georgia making, more of an effort to lock down the state of Georgia, or is it just it's about getting the best players? And in 2025, some of the best players happen to be from the state of Georgia, but it's not like Georgia's, not going to sign big time players from other states as well. You had Taylon Taylor out of the state of Illinois. Like, the talent isn't always going to be from the state of Georgia. And you look at some of the best players. I'm just talking recent history with those Eagles players, but like you look at a Todd Gurley from North Carolina, a Matthew Stafford out of Texas, an Aaron Murray from Florida, a AJ Green from South Carolina. A Brock Bowers from California, Jalen Carter from Florida. A lot of the best players that have come through this program have not been in-state guys. So as cool as it is to lock down the state of Georgia, what's really cool is just getting the best talent from anywhere and everywhere. And Georgia's going to continue to do that.